Hi, Bechara. Thanks for coming on the Healthcare Shares podcast with your company, Mobio Interactive. Perhaps you can tell the listeners a little bit about your background and what the company does.
Thanks, Laurence. I'm really happy to do this with you today. Um, so I am classically trained as a chemist originally, and then I did a PhD in neuroscience. Then I opened my own lab at the psychiatry hospital in Zurich as a principal investigator. My research in neuroscience focused on understanding the circuits, the molecules in the brain that are important for us to drive exploration. Really, what is underlying curiosity? That led me into mental health because a hallmark feature of many mental illnesses is actually a dearth of exploratory behavior. And Mobio Interactive is really an extension of the research that I was doing at the psychiatry hospital.
Really interesting. And how long have you been working on the company? And that kind of thing. Where does it stand in terms of developing the product as well?
Well, my co-founder Mark Flobert and I got the ideation and the wheels turning around 2012, 2013. Really started getting the ball rolling in a meaningful way in 2015. Ran our first clinical trial in 2016. That's when I decided to quit my job and actually join the company full time. And I've been here 2017. We have a digital theragnostic platform that's on the market now. It's called AMDTX, AMDTX. And it's in use by a few hospitals and a few telehealth providers in a couple markets. And itself is a non-regulated platform that gives patient support, remote patient monitoring through a really unique tool, I'm sure we'll discuss later, and as well as clinical decision support. And through that platform, we're able to unlock prescription-only interventions that are clinically validated and regulated through the agencies and reimbursed.
Really interesting. And so is it a technology where it's using video to analyze the patient in terms of stress levels and that kind of thing? I was reading a little bit about it.
That's right. That's right. So we have technology that allows us to extract biomarkers in real time using the mobile camera. And then we send some of those biomarkers to a neural network that runs on a cloud. And that neural network has been trained on tens of thousands of individuals from around the world in order to be able to compute an accurate and objective and unbiased assessment of the patient's level of stress in that moment in time. And because it's so quick to do, just 30 seconds, it's really easy to bookend a therapy session with this. And that gives you a stress delta. How impactful was this particular therapy session on this one individual at this moment in time in terms of affecting their nervous system and reduction in stress? So over time, we're able to learn what forms of therapy are actually most efficacious in that regard for each patient, and then make predictions as to what therapy will work for patients in an accurate way.
And is the most common use case right now telemedicine, or are you seeing other use cases as well?
In the States, for the unregulated platform, telemedicine is where it's being leveraged. Up in Canada, hospitals are licensing the technology directly and really using it as a way to give immediate care to patients on psychiatric waitlist.
Interesting. And is it during a live visit that you're analyzing the video stream, or do you also have kind of like an asynchronous feature where maybe the patient's using a mobile app and they're uploading a video?
Yeah, so as the background points out, it's our mission is really to be able to do precision psychiatry at scale. And so all of our therapy, all our monitoring is asynchronous and on demand, just through the mobile device.
Interesting. And how are you pursuing this in terms of the business model? Is it just like a licensing fee for different telemedicine providers, or are you working directly with health systems where they're paying something for the software as well?
We do both. Depends on the market. The hospitals in Canada, they get money from the government to license it, and so it's a site-wide license. And in the States, through the telehealth providers, they bill through the pre-existing reimbursement codes, and because we contribute to the clinical decision making, then we're a service provider for them. They pay us for that.
Interesting. And so it doesn't require regulatory approval in the U.S., or how are you thinking about that again?
The platform itself does not. The platform itself is a Class 1 software as a medical device, Class 1 SAMD. The interventions that are released on the platform, those are regulated. And our first one should be approved, cleared as a Class 2 SAMD in the US next year.
And what's the first kind of intervention you're looking at? Is it for a specific disease state, or how are you thinking about that?
It's indicated for cancer survivors.
Okay.
Specific intervention, which is for cancer survivors, really focusing on cancer-related post-traumatic stress. And then, so, one of the main things that cancer patients have, potentially have to deal with the rest of their lives is a potential traumatic fear of the cancer reoccurring. That can be ongoing, and that can lead to anxiety disorders and other affect disorders like major depression. And so we're able to reduce that symptomatology in these patients. And we've clinically validated it in Canada, the United States, and in Brazil in a couple languages. And now we're embarking on a very large clinical trial to make sure that this works not just within a subset of the population, but across many, many cancer types of all ages, different genders, different ethnicities, et cetera.
And what's the experience like for the patient? I mean, it sounds like you have this diagnostic capability where you're looking at things like their stress levels, but have you also developed almost like content or like a digital therapeutic that's kind of delivering information to the patient as well? Or how do you think about that part of it?
That's right. So our unique USP is the ability for us to objectively quantify stress. So essentially we're using heart rate variability, but we take a step forward and we make a claim that this heart rate variability equates to this in terms of a patient's level of stress. And we're very confident in the accuracy of that measurement. But in addition, we have a whole host of therapeutic content. So the interventions themselves are step-by-step courses. Some of them contain some adaptive choose your own adventure type of usage, but they're really these contained patient specific courses that give patients a lot of option in terms of who they're actually interacting with on our platform, and allow them to do many different types of therapeutic activities. So most of it's really rooted in meditation and mindfulness practices, but there's a lot of CBT journaling and other elements.
Have you looked at expanding into Germany? They have that DIGA law for digital therapeutics. I'm not sure if you've heard about that, but that would be really interesting for you, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, they've got already, I think, maybe 3 or 4 dozen digital therapeutics that are approved on that platform. We're already live in 6 different languages, including German. And so it's a market where we have the potential to expand. What we've discovered by looking at others who have gone through the DIGA program is they have a really good system set up to get the approval and to have mandated reimbursement, but the issue is still driving patient adoption. And so our approach for that is really to make use of the fact that we have this unregulated platform, which can release these regulated interventions. And so anytime we enter a new market, and Germany is one of our secondary, but not primary markets, what we first want to do is establish a base of clinicians and healthcare providers that are already using our platform and have it integrated into their pre-existing EMRs or whatever infrastructure they're using to examine patient data. That way, it's a much easier for them to then prescribe something which is released on the same platform. No change to their workflow. It's something they already trust and they're familiar with. So.
Yeah, I think the challenge for all these digital health products really comes down to marketing. I think the whole industry has often been very focused on building products, proving the clinical outcomes, and getting reimbursement and that kind of thing. But like you said, if you don't have a way to market to and enroll patients, I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter that it's reimbursed. So I think that's kind
right.
of key to scale it up, really.
And we absolutely we need scale. So we're in the mental health space. We treat a variety of mental illnesses and mental illnesses associated with chronic disorders. And the scale is massive. Looking at 1 in 8 people around the world, 8 billion of us, so 1 billion people. So that there's a huge market, there's huge demand, there's inability for the current systems to deal with that demand, and there's a lot of push from many stakeholders to deliver better therapy at scale. However, there's still some hurdles, and I think as an industry, digital therapeutics is doing it in the right order. I mean, there's no point in marketing something if it's not clinically validated, and there's no real ability to truly deliver scale unless you're integrated into the healthcare economy. So reimbursement is also a really important step. And now it's about tackling that, and we think we have a really good approach by first working with the clinician to make their lives easier, and then asking them to prescribe our products.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, definitely want to prove that the product works from a scientific standpoint. I feel like there's this point in every founder's journey where they have to kind of flip the switch in their mind that says, okay, it works now. Now we have to do sales and marketing like any other business, because I feel like sometimes founders can get stuck in that like product stage where they just kind of keep building, and they don't shift into sales and marketing mode. But it sounds like you're thinking about it, correctly. And so, where's the company stand now in terms of, raising capital? I mean, are you thinking about raising money soon, and what would that be used for in terms of getting the company to the next big milestone?
So we've been extremely capital efficient. We've raised 3 million from investors and 3 million in non-dilutive, mostly from government grants and in-kind funding from our research partners. And with that $6 million, we've been able to bring 11 different indications into the pipeline, and begin commercialization in a few different markets. I feel really, really confident about our ability to really do this at scale. And we spend a lot of time focusing on the technology and the ability to objectively quantify how people are responding to our therapy in real time. So those pieces are really there. And now we're in the midst of working on our Series A. So we're having a few discussions with a number of investors that can do some larger ticket sizes to really bring things up a notch, to focus on that sale and marketing, as you mentioned before. And meanwhile, we're accepting smaller checks right now as a pre-A round, which has a steep discount against the Series A.
And you have some physician investors already. You're saying, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have a great observer on our board. His name is B. Mian, and he's one of the managing directors of an angel group in Australia called Australian Medical Angels. And they participate in 2 rounds. They participated in our pre-seed as well as our pre-A. A great group of physicians. I've met with them a couple times down in Australia, and we're really proud to have their support, right? Because as I said, step one for us is to make the life of a physician and the job of a physician easier. Then, once we're able to accomplish that, I think that they're going to be a lot more willing to prescribe our therapies to their patients.
And I mean, what do you think about the idea of having, more physicians as investors? I mean, what if you could just raise $5 million from 100 physicians, for example? There's no right answer, but some founders have gone down like that route where they just have a bunch of physicians as investors, or maybe you want to do it as like a hybrid with a venture capital firm. But I guess, like, what value have you seen in working with the physicians? Have they been able to give you input into the product, or clinical guidelines and that kind of thing?
I mean, the most valuable thing they give us is perspective from a physician. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the number one gatekeepers. Once you've got clinical validation, regulatory approval is essentially paperwork, and reimbursement is a negotiation, almost like with a big, MNC or something. But at the end of the day, if the physicians don't want to prescribe it, you can't have the business. So having that very frank, direct perspective from the from the physician, as a routine in every board meeting is actually really, really, really powerful for us. In addition, I think it provides credibility, because physicians they can only really invest in something that they can imagine using themselves. Right. I think if they couldn't see themselves actually making use of this with their, in their practice, then I don't think they would actually write a check. So it helps in a couple different ways, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like you've already had a lot of great support from physicians. And how are you thinking about like the 5 or 10-year vision for the company? I mean, are you thinking about just focusing on a small set of indications, or going, even broader potentially? I think that's another big founder decision. Do I take one product that's working well and just ramp up the marketing, or do I kind of go broader with a suite of products? Or what would you say to a physician that's listening to this in terms of the different clinical use cases you ultimately envision?
Well, I mean, I think, in the mental health space, and and considering every different chronic disorder and different patient type is a different indication, there's 2, 3, 400 different, indications that we could go after. So, right now we have 11, that are seriously in the pipeline, and ideations for whatever, many, many more. And I think that's a lot. And how quickly we're able, for us at this size, that's a lot for sure. And how quickly we're able to commercialize them really depends on how much money we raise. That's the bandwidth. So, for example, we have 3 indications that are already clinically validated, but we really only have the money to take one to market first. So we're doing that one. We're prioritizing the one which is for cancer survivors, and really going forward with that. And we have great partners. We work with City of Hope Memorial. We work with Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. We work with Linda Carlson, who's and Michael Specka, who really created the whole application of mindfulness for cancer survivors and have been working on this for 30 years. We have a partnership with the Canadian Cancer Society. And so we've really got a lot of traction in the oncology space, and we really want to bring that to market first. And then we can do the others. The other thing about this as an indication is the cancer patients are really receptive to our technology, because they're in their clinical journey, the focus is so much on the tumor that very often the other aspects of the patient are neglected. And you can understand why. I mean, the oncologists aren't psychiatrists, aren't expert, and you got to deal with this life-threatening condition, right, as your top priority. And so there's not a lot out there for cancer patients right now that's truly clinically validated and highly efficacious. And particularly cancer patients that live in rural areas, they're really receptive to on-demand asynchronous therapy. So
it sounds like
it's a good population.
It sounds like a very scalable intervention as well, because you're not necessarily using, humans in telemedicine, right? I mean, it's kind of like a digital therapeutic, which means you could really scale it pretty quickly as well. I mean, that's part of the benefit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of cancer survivors out there. It's not a small, it's not a small niche little participant pool, right? There's a lot of people have been through this. So.
No, it's really exciting work you're doing. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the Healthcare Shares podcast audience before we wrap up? I mean, it seems like a really exciting company you're working on.
Well, it's super exciting. Main thing to say is that I can't take credit, right? I'm one founder out of a team, and really it's there's so many people that are doing in my company that are really doing a lot of heavy lifting, and that's super exciting. And we're really grateful for all the research and clinical collaborations that we have ongoing. I would say over half of our clinical trials were inbound, coming directly from surgeons that are working, and they also have maybe a research position. So if there's other researchers out there that are interested in collaborating with us, I myself am a former academic, so I know what it's like. I know the importance of the data, and we're very open when it comes to publishing. So we sign contracts that indicate the company will not interfere with any desire from the academics to publish. And I think that's really important for us as a company long term. And it seems to go over well with our research partners.
Yeah, research is so important. All right, last question before we wrap up. If there was a younger healthcare entrepreneur founder listening to this, and you had to give them one piece of advice about pursuing healthcare entrepreneurship, what would that be?
I'd say don't do it unless you have no other choice. And what I mean by that is don't do it out of desperation, but do it because you're so compelled you literally can't say no, because it's going to be challenging, and there's a huge likelihood that you could fail. So you want to go into this understanding those things. And the other thing I would say is, according to statistics, 50% of startups that fail because of disputes with the founders, and 90% of startups fail. So what that means is, if you don't fail, if you can eliminate that as a cause of failure, then your chance of failure goes down to 45%, which means the odds are in your favor, right? This is statistics, obviously.
Which means no co-founder, right? Just kidding.
Well, I guess it could be I mean, potentially, yeah, that's one solution. But of course, multiple minds can be really helpful. But the point is, Mark and I, when we founded the company, we made a promise that the company will fail before our friendship does. And we didn't do that with any business strategic reason. We did that literally to protect our friendship. But at the end of the day, it forced us to work out any differences between us personally. And there was a lot of difficult times in the early days. Now it's like smooth sailing. It's great because we've really found our groove. But that's the other thing is don't think that you can't have a fight with somebody just because you're a friend or you've known them a long time or something. Like, take that stuff seriously, and that can really help your business in the long term, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, I think some founders just think they must have a co-founder. I mean, I'd rather see somebody have no co-founder than just kind of add one just for the sake of adding one. Like, it has to be somebody that you really feel you can work with for 10 years. I feel like,
Yeah,
if you can't work for them for 10 years, I probably wouldn't, start a company with them. But anyway, this has been a really interesting podcast episode. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll look forward to following the company's progress.
Thanks, Laurence. Pleasure.